Hey everyone, and welcome to the April edition of 3030. Pat Reinhardt here from Conductor, and starting off, of course, I hope everyone is safe and healthy, and getting through this. So far, I've been doing okay, although my internet has been crashing, so I am on my phone right now, and hopefully the presentation doesn't collapse. If not, I will keep going as I do. But let's get into what we're going to be talking about today. We are going to be going through our update on our COVID research. We closed out, as promised from last month, we closed out the survey, put some slides together. Just going to walk you guys through that quickly so you can get, just updated data on all of that. We're going to talk about Google Shopping being free once again, which is pretty cool. There was an issue, or, kind of still is an issue of Google indexing new content, something that, happened last year, happened again here. I'm going to talk about, again, in my endless pursuit of getting Google documenting best practices that pretty much everyone knows, but just reinforcing it. John Mueller was talking about canonical tags and how they're a best practice, which is good. And also another thing that's been interesting as I've been, looking for different ways and using different tools that use JavaScript to change, meta elements on page and just other elements on page. Using a no index in HTML, Google won't process other robots, tags in JavaScript. We're going to go through all that, but let's get into it because we only have 30 minutes. Number one, we are going to talk about, going into the updates from our data, just kind of walk through all the data points and where everything kind of hashed out. So key takeaways is that, after, as just a reminder of everybody, we surveyed, a few hundred, marketers at, higher levels of an organization, just to see where their marketing budgets will go, how they're planning on, reallocating that in the face of COVID. And the key takeaways here is that 65% of marketers anticipate a decrease to their annual marketing budget. Not surprising, right? And of course, while decreased budgets, are the top concern, most people are talking about staff reductions, channel limitations, as threats to their performance, which again, nothing shocking there, but just something to think about. And also that 86% of marketers, predict that their marketing goals will be harder to reach. More than half of them, believe that, but the most important thing, for us in this type of program about SEO really, and content is that more than half of the marketers that we surveyed, believe that SEO is more important during this time. And I also believe that it will continue to be important and more important as time goes on as well. So getting into the data, so this is where everything, wound up. Use some slides that look like this, but 35% of respondents say, reduction in marketing budget is their greatest concern, which is not surprising. Again, 58% of respondents, say if they face if faced with a recession, they would have to lower their budgets. 47% of respondents say that coronavirus situation will make the company's ability to achieve the goals, more difficult. Again, but other thing, over half, 63% of respondents say SEO will be more important during this time, which I think is very interesting to folks, in our industry, of course, because I think a lot of people are going to realize that they haven't planted the trees, that SEO is, even though it takes a longer time, it can help, be the engine that gets you through these very difficult times. So by the numbers, the greatest concern surrounding the impact of COVID-19 on marketing performance. And there's a bunch, to go here, for the most part, that channels are going to be unavailable, like direct mail, events, two big, very, very hard hit, areas right now that, that people aren't using. That's definitely going to, hurt, us, even at Conductor, talking about C3. We're doing it virtual this year. C3 is a big event for us, and it's a big in-person event for us where speakers, from the industry come in and we get to share and hang out with our customers and friends. And, we're doing it virtual this year. So that's something that's impacting folks who do things like that, us included. 13, and that was 20% of the respondents. 13%, no major concerns regarding marketing performance, which is interesting and good for them. Happy for those folks. Your reduction in team size, layoffs, 11% said that that's something that's going to, hurt their marketing performance, of course. Reduction in marketing budgets overall, 35%. And then a small percentage, staying up to date with search results, just, Google My Business, just all the changes that have happened, and just having, and that kind of goes back to the reduction in team size, just having a person who can be dedicated to, or people who can be dedicated to those everyday things. And then, and about 17% said other, we're going to impact. So, how would a global recession, impact your marketing strategy? I think just kind of the boil down here is that most people are going to be lowering their budget. And then from there, about 30% raise the bar for marketing ROI, which is interesting, because they're going to try to overperform. Again, comes down to 25%, reduce the size of their team, marketing headcount, invest less in high-cost channels like paid media, about 30% there. 23%, we will invest more in digital marketing, which is interesting. 31% is the one that's most relevant to us here, though, or at least for this program. We will specifically invest more in lower-cost channels like SEO. So everyone's seeing a trend here, right? You're seeing that people, they know, we all know that marketing budgets are going to be tighter. We know that they're going to be lower. We know that people are laying people off, which is, of course, tragic and horrible. But for the channel itself, a lot of people are looking at SEO because it's, compared to paid search, it's a much lower cost, barrier, much lower cost barrier to entry, much lower cost channel, significantly lower fractions of what people pay, spend on paid search. And I think a lot of people, are going to, are really starting to realize that and wish they had invested at it before all this terribleness started happening. And then, given the developing situation with COVID-19, what do you anticipate will happen with your marketing budget? Again, about 2% said it would increase greatly, which is interesting. About 7% said it would increase slightly, 26% or 27%-ish, said it would stay the same. Vast majority, almost half, about 45% said it would decrease slightly. And then about 20% said it would decrease greatly. For the folks in the decrease greatly, those are a lot of folks you're seeing in like the travel industry and the hospitality industry, which makes sense. Just given how hard hit those industries have been. Then talking about, are you shifting budget away from cost-heavy channels in paid media to lower-cost channels within earned media? So about 18% said no, the paid media will stay the same, which is interesting. About another 17.5% said it'll decrease slightly, which is also interesting. About 8.5% said it'll decrease steeply, which is low. I thought it was going to be more than that, for the steeply, just because of everything going on. About 7% said it will increase slightly. About 2% said it would increase steeply. 6.3% said we will decrease our paid investment, but we will not increase our investment in earned media. And then the vast majority, compared to the other areas, over 40% of people said, I don't know, which, of course, is not surprising because there's still a lot about what's going to happen in the world that people just don't know, and I think a lot of leaders are struggling with what to do when they're staring layoffs in the face or furloughs or, things of that nature. So I think a lot of leaders are still out there trying to figure this all out and what it means for them and their teams and which direction to go. So interesting findings there. So given the decrease in offline activity and the increase in digital activity, do you anticipate your investment in digital channels will change? This one, is interesting. No, it will remain the same, about 19%, which was more than I thought. That anyone saying that everything's going to remain the same, was interesting. Because usually people are on the polar opposites of what's happening. Most of the people I talk about are like, hey, listen, we're actually doing pretty well right now, depending on what they do, what they're offering us. And then of course there's the other end, which people are just having a really hard time. So usually I'm talking to people on the either end of the spectrum. So it's interesting that almost 20% said it would remain the same. 12%, it will decrease slightly. Again, I thought that's lower than I thought than it would on the decrease. It'll decrease steeply, 4%. It'll increase slightly, 27%. It will increase steeply, 11%. And then again, 27%, the higher percentages are, are in those I don't know buckets because a lot of folks still really don't know what's, what's going to happen. Next question. So given the developing situation with COVID-19, do you anticipate your marketing goals will change? So 9% increased greatly. 27% said, increased slightly. which was more than I anticipated, along with stay the same, like 32%. I was and then 26% decreased slightly, 6% decreased greatly. I was surprised that over 30% of folks said that they were going to keep everything the same. Again, most of the folks that I'm talking to, it's on either side. It's on either side of the spectrum, right? It's either they're doing well, or they're getting through and they're okay, but and they're increasing, or they're doing really bad and they're decreasing quite a bit. All their goals and all that. So I found it interesting that a lot of leaders, a third of the leaders that we that we surveyed said, yeah, no, everything's staying the same. So that was an interesting finding from that. So will coronavirus situation make your company's ability to achieve your annual marketing goals easier or more difficult? This one, not surprising at all. So 2%, I'm going to start there and we'll go clockwise. So 2% said much easier. Good for them. I wish them well. 5%, slightly easier. Again, good for them. 7%, no impact. That's great. But of course, not surprising, I'm sure, to anyone on the phone. 39% saying slightly more difficult. Again, which I thought was lower than I thought people would say. And then 47% say, more difficult. So of course, the vast majority of folks, know and believe that this is going to make their jobs and their goals much harder to achieve. That again, not a ton of surprise there. And then getting into, an SEO specific question, so will SEO be more or less important during this time? So 20% said no, it will remain the same. Interesting. Again, I thought that was actually lower, than people. Again, I figured that most people are, a lot of people are going to, just at that right now, because there's still so much uncertainty that they wouldn't change their minds a bit. 3%, it will decrease slightly, which is interesting. 2%, it will decrease greatly. So very small percentage of folks saying it will decrease, which is interesting. Only 5% of everyone polled said it would decrease, which I found very interesting. And then of course, vast majority of folks, saying something that it will increase. So 34%, it will increase slightly. That's a lot of folks who are probably getting into it for the first time, learning about it, saying like, hey, listen, we just had, our marketing budget slashed. We got rid of a ton of paid search budget, and, what can we invest in? And someone in the organization, or they're reading up, people are talking about SEO as a cost-effective investment. So that's probably people whose interests are just peaked. And then you have another about, 29, 30% of folks who said they'll increase steeply. And this is interesting. And for folks in charge of SEO, this is something that we have to look at and say, after all this is done, will this be one of those catalysts for the industry, where you're going to have a lot of leaders, really start to look at SEO as, something that is, kind of a cushion, that they can land on if, God forbid, something like this ever happen again. Of course, hopefully it never does. But just during any type of economic downturn, any kind of hard times within the world, is our channel going to, get more of a seat at the table, just because a lot of people are learning, that lesson right now, that they, if they had invested, maybe if they're hard hit, maybe they'd be less hard hit. Of course, there are some industries that nothing could change that, but there's a lot that, there's a lot of, especially with the conversations that I've been having, a lot of people wish that they had invested a long time ago in this, just to kind of cushion that blow, after having, a ton of marketing budgets stripped away from them. So not super surprising there. And then just keep moving, so which types of content most interests you as a resource during this time? This is an interesting question, and it was kind of all over the map, right? So 42%, and this was multiple, you could click multiple on these, getting the most out of the marketing budgets in a recession, which of course makes sense, given all the other answers. Digital strategies on a budget, again, all going back to money and budget, makes complete sense. 30% of people polled, or 31% basically, getting buy-in for SEO during a recession. So that's interesting. So I think that's a lot of folks who have been trying to champion this over time. And what's the best way to do it without looking like you're trying to capitalize on what's happening, right? That's not what any of us want to do, of course. But if we want to help, and as SEO can help during times like this. So So that was interesting to see. About 40%, navigating changing priorities or marketing goals. So pivoting, being nimble, things of that nature. A lot of content. A lot of folks want to read content about that. Scaling of content creation, about 35%, and then 40% tips and tricks for paid and organic synergy. So, interesting blend of answers from all over, but you can see a lot tied into organic and content. So people are thinking about this. People are talking about it, and it's just during this time, a lot of the companies that I'm talking about, they're asking these same questions. So this all lined up for me. It's like, hey, listen, I'm lowering my paid budget over here. I want to, what's the best way to invest in content? What's the best way or the most effective way to invest in content and invest in organic without getting burned and things of that nature? So I've been having a lot of conversations, which all lines up to, especially the paid and organic synergy. How do we get more out of the paid search that we do, the paid budget that we do have left by mixing it and finding those synergies with organic, not to use a buzzword. The last slide with data on it, as we move through our time together. So which content type is your most preferred for consuming timely educational information related to successful marketing during COVID-19? This was an interesting one. 43%, the vast majority of folks look at blog posts, going online, looking it up, getting information, depending on which industry you're in. So definitely something to consider that educational content that you're putting out is important, and people are that's where they want to get there. 9% on-demand courses, which was interesting. 19% webinars. A lot of people joining webinars. Virtual events, 5%. I think we've all probably joined one or two of those. And the next thing, hope you join us for ours on May 12th for C3. Videos, 14%, and then, white papers, which is 10%. So really all over the map, but the vast majority of folks are going to companies that they either buy from, work with, or, are in the same industry, and they're looking at those, they're looking at blog posts to get their information. So, a few conclusions. The marketers will reduce overall spend while increasing investment in low-cost, high ROI channels like SEO. That seemed very, very apparent. That's very true of everything, that all the data that came back here. Also, companies will turn to digital content for brand building. A lot of content, queries, a lot of content responses about folks who are looking to scale content, scale teams, after this is all done. And SEO will be moved in-house to cut costly agency, retainers. That was another thing that we gleaned from this, is that, people are, cost cutting. Contractors, quote unquote, are always the first to go, during times like this. And I think you're going to see a lot of folks start, look at this and say, hey, do we need, 4 agencies throwing all these different things? Can we bring teams in house? So I think that's something to look out for. If you work in an agency, just to keep an eye out for people looking to in-house. And for folks who are in in-house, are you thinking about that? Do you work with agencies? And are you thinking about that? So that's because a lot of other people are. So just something to be aware of. If anyone wants to read the full study, you can go to this URL. The second course will be circulated around. But I'm going to move through since we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to talk about nerdy SEO stuff. So Google Shopping is free again. So basically, Google has relaunched Frugal. I don't know if everyone remembers. You can read. They had a really good post out on Webmaster Central, about this. It was about last Monday. That the search results in Google Shopping are going to consist primarily of non-paid listings, which is basically what they did. They did originally when they launched Google Shopping, and that would have started. So this post came out on the 21st. So this rollout would have started this past Monday. Which is really cool, and I think it's great. The post is really good. I think during this time, retailers have been battered down. My guess is Google was probably going to roll out some kind of test with this or some longer test with this. They weren't going to just, kind of throw it out there. But I think during this time, I think it's a cool thing of them to do, just to get, that free, to get something out there for free for retailers, all different shapes and sizes, to be able to show up without having to pay. That doesn't mean you can't, advertise in Google Shopping, but it means that, primarily those listings on the, so when you go in, you hit the shopping tab in Google, primarily, those were going to be non-paid. So I was talking to a few folks about this, a few retailers, and they were asking, like, do I have to do anything in my merchant account? Is there anything you have to do? So for the most part, if you are an existing user, of the Merchant Center, this is straight from the blog post. I'm going to read it verbatim. And shopping ads, you don't have to do anything to take advantage of the free listing. And for new users of Merchant Center, they're working through the onboarding. So as they're streamlining it, they're getting more people into it over the coming weeks and months. So if you're not in that and you're waiting, just be patient. Google's getting through it. And then on Search Engine Roundtable, Barry had put in an extra thing. If you're an existing user of Merchant Center and shopping ads, and you've already opted into the surfaces across Google programs, you might already be eligible to show your products in these unpaid experiences, and no further steps are necessary to participate. So if you are part of that program, which you can track to see how often you're being surfaced in Merchant Center, in shopping, then you might be eligible as well. So go into Merchant Center and look and see where you stand. But for the most part, if you're already buying ads, you shouldn't have to do anything to get into this. And if you're a new person, you just have to get through the onboarding process, and that's really it. Okay, moving on. So bummer, Google's having issues indexing new content again. If anyone remembers last year, basically around the same time, right middle April, beginning of May, Google was having an issue crawling and indexing, brand new content. So for publishers, of course, it's an issue like Wall Street Journal, Search Engine Land, CNN, things of that nature. They would post an article, and then when you look to go say, hey, like when you go say, basically those sites are indexed in real time. So if you had gone in and you had searched, if you had searched for a article that was published about within the last hour, which you can do in the SERPs, they weren't showing up. We had this issue on our side where we published, our head of onboarding published an article, and then it got up, it was ranking really well, and then it just completely disappeared for a few days. And, we couldn't understand what was happening until this, report came out. So for that, it's one of those things where it's like, what do you do? There's really not much you as an individual can do. It comes down to that Google is aware of this. They're working to fix it. I have seen our new articles getting indexed, but I have, I can't say that it's been 100% fixed. I haven't seen a report that it's fixed. Usually, Search Engine Roundtable will have it, Search Engine Land. Search Liaison will tweet, Danny Sullivan will tweet, John Mueller, Gary Allen, those guys will tweet and say something, is fixed or not. I really haven't seen anything. Maybe I missed it, but as of right now, there hasn't been anything official. But Danny did say that he would pass on. So Google is aware of the issue, and they're just kind of waiting for them, to to fix it. Which, of course, for us is a lot of it's a lot of waiting, which is what we're used to, though. Okay, moving on to the next one. We're doing okay on time. So. Again, anyone who joins the program regularly, which I'm very thankful for, knows that over the last, year or two, I've been looking for Google confirming best practices that have been long-standing best practices. So, we've already seen that title tags are still important, things like that, like basic things. And a lot of people are like, why are you talking about it? I'm like, because I think it's important to build these things up so that people know that's still a thing. So, basically, someone was asking, about canonical tags. The tweet was, my site is bootstrap-based. Do I need to define a canonical URL for the homepage? Again, John Mueller came back and confirmed, number one, that regardless of the framework, so just because the site's bootstrap, you have a CMS, whatever your framework is, that doesn't really matter whether having canonical. It's about the URL and a group, and the group of URLs that potentially have the same thing on it, and if you're using it properly. So basically, John said, regardless of the framework, it's a good practice to specify a canonical, especially if you have a preference regarding the URL shown. So for me, a lot, I was talking to someone about this, and they're like, yeah, we know this. It's like, yeah, me too. But a lot of people ask me, and again, I say this all the time, everyone has to remember that not everyone has been in SEO for 10, 15 years, even 1 year. A lot of people are still learning about it for the first time. And this is one of the most common things that are messed up is canonical tags. And a lot of people think that, specifying a canonical for every page is a waste of time. Again, that's an argument for another time, and I still have it often. I believe that it is, and I think that this leans in my direction, saying that you should specify a canonical self-reference, just to take care of, especially if you have a CMS like WordPress, which spins up, error pages, or you have, sites that automatically generated, parameter-driven pages and things of that nature. Having that canonical tag there, helps control all of that and tell Google, listen, this is the URL I want. And it was just good and cool to see him, confirm that was still a thing. So I'm still going to find these basic things. I'm still going to report on them, even though people make fun of me for it. But I don't care. I think it's important. Last one. So if you index in HTML, Google won't process it. Won't process a different one in JavaScript. So basically, what this means is that a lot of people have been controlling meta elements or just header elements, CSS selector elements, with JavaScript. And as Google has gotten better at crawling JavaScript, this has become less of a problem. One thing that people do try is that when Google comes to your site, it reads, your HTML, right? And then it executes the JavaScript. Now you can and then it will show that, right? Like you can change your title tag, meta description, your heading tags. You can use tools like Graph Science that help you do that and help you scale, and that's not a problem. But what a lot of people do is they try to control no index tags, so robots directives, with JavaScript, which you really can't do since Google reads the HTML first. So if Google comes and sees a robots no index tag on your HTML, it's probably not. It's not going to. You can't change that no index with JavaScript. So basically, Google comes, reads the HTML, sees it's no index, and then it executes the JavaScript and sees that you have changed that no index to an index follow, let's say. It is not going to process that. And someone from Google, Martin Split from Google, confirmed that. So basically said, I tested if the process changes meta robots in JavaScript when initial HTML has a no index, and we don't. So they don't process it. Once they see that no index, that's it. They're not going to process anything else in the JavaScript. They may crawl and execute the JavaScript, but they're going to respect that first directive in the HTML. That's what I'm taking from this. But then again, just to confirm that, other elements like title tags, meta descriptions, heading tags, you can do that. There's no issues. I do it almost every day. I execute tests with JavaScript for regular, title tag and, A/B testing and things of that nature. Not a big deal. So you're seeing this broader trend, that Google is, supporting JavaScript changes, and they're getting close to 100%. Eventually, the robots thing will probably be able to control the JavaScript, because right now it's not. But for the most part, they are moving in that direction, because most people is moving in that direction. The web is moving in that direction. So that's something to take. That's something to take into account if you're trying to, control your robots directives in, in JavaScript. If it's in the initial HTML, not going to process that change in JavaScript. As I mentioned earlier, we are doing C3 Virtual this year. Of course, we're really excited about it. Seth has given a great keynote. Stefan and myself and a bunch of industry experts are doing tips and tricks and other conductors. We do our 30 tips and tricks annually. It's something that I'm going to miss being up on stage, with a bunch of smart people talking about. But we do have a cool thing planned for it. So we're going to try to bring a lot of industry experts together, a lot of conductors together to give you those tips. But we hope that y'all are able to join us. It's going to be a really good event. And with that, we are here. We have made it to the end. Everyone, I say this every month, but thank you so much for joining me. I will answer any questions that I can through email since we are out of time. But I always say this is my favorite part of my job, and I would not be able to do it without all of you. So I thank you so much for taking your taking time out of your very important schedule to spend it with me and learn a few things, hopefully. And I, of course, hope that all of y'all are safe, that you are healthy, and just remember that we're in a snapshot in time, and we will get through this together. And if anyone has any questions on anything we covered and you didn't ask it, shoot me an email, reinhardt@conductor.com. Happy to jump on the phone, happy to send an email. Outside of that, thank you all so much again, and we will see you next month.